Trump's extreme agenda. Questions?
Leader Jeffries, when did you receive or learn about the threat against you from Christopher Moynihan, and is it plausible that the Speaker hadn't heard about this case before a reporter asked him this morning, since the authorities in New York announced the arrest on Sunday?
Well, that's not clear, and that, is for people to judge the credibility of that response. At the end of the day, here in America, we're living in a moment of extreme political violence. And that impacts every single person in public service and the people that we are all working hard to represent. But we will not be intimidated. We will continue to show up and stand up and speak up for the American people, to improve their quality of life, to address the extremism that is being unleashed on everyday Americans by this administration all across the country. We will not bend. We will not break. We will never bow down. And when it comes to these extremists out there, you better watch how you talk when you talk about me. Next question.
Mr. Leader, good afternoon. Thank you. Is the only way the government can reopen if Donald Trump gets engaged in negotiations?
Donald Trump is the President of the United States. Republicans have the House and have the Senate at the same period of time. They have complete control of government, and they made the decision to shut the government down rather than provide health care to everyday Americans through extending the Affordable Care Act tax credits, while at the same time addressing the other aspects of the Republican health care crisis, the biggest crisis in health care that we've ever seen in modern-day America, brought to us by extreme Republican policies, like the largest cut to Medicaid in American history, triggering the fact that all across the country, hospitals, nursing homes, and community-based health centers are closing, including in rural America. It was uncovered yesterday that throughout the state of Alabama, there are about 50 or so hospitals and medical institutions that may close in the next year or two because of Republican policies. Because of Republican policies in states like Georgia, Virginia, and Maryland, healthcare premiums without an extension of the Affordable Care Act tax credits may increase by $2,000 a year. That's $24,000 on families that make an average of $63,000 per year. That's impossible for anyone to sustain. And so, of course, Donald Trump should come to the negotiating table. And Democrats have been very clear that we will sit down with any of them, anytime, any place, here at the Capitol or back at the White House, to reopen the government, to support our hardworking federal employees, to enact a spending agreement that makes life better for the American people, while at the same time decisively addressing the Republican health care crisis that even Marjorie Taylor Greene acknowledges is devastating the American people.
Why do you think he's sitting on the sidelines?
Thanks. Go ahead.
What do you make of it? The person accused of threatening you is the recipient of one of those blanket pardons.
I think the reckless and irresponsible pardons of hundreds of violent felons on January 6th has consequences, as eloquently articulated by Representative Jamie Raskin. There are consequences to that, beyond me. Beyond me. The consequences are, we've seen crimes committed by people who Donald Trump pardoned on the first day he was sworn into office, by folks who have been released back into society all across the country, some of them violent crimes. And so there are consequences to these irresponsible actions, and not a single House Republican has walked away from them, not a single one. There are consequences when these extremists who are part of the Trump administration label the entirety of the Democratic Party as terrorists or criminals. There are consequences to that beyond us. We all know what we've signed up for, but there's pain being visited upon the American people because of actions taken by Donald Trump, supported by House Republicans and Senate Republicans on day one of his presidency. And I'm going to yield to my two colleagues, but by the way, what Donald Trump promised to do on day one of his presidency was lower costs for everyday Americans. That was the promise. He lied to the American people all of last year. Did he ever say I was going to pardon hundreds of violent felons who brutally beat police officers at this Capitol on January 6th? Did he ever say that? Was that the promise that Donald Trump and the Republicans made to the country? No. They failed to lower costs, have done nothing. Life is more expensive for everyday Americans. Electricity costs up. Grocery costs up. Housing costs up. Now they want to jack up health care premiums on working class Americans. But they have time to pardon hundreds of violent felons, release them back into society, threatening the public safety of everyday Americans, and then can't spend a moment trying to make life more affordable, make health care more affordable for the American people.
Can I add
Jamie?
one thing to this? Thank you for that question. Up until Donald Trump, the pardon process was governed by Department of Justice rules, by statute, and of course by the Constitution. And there was a very set pattern, which is each pardon application was considered on its own. It was analyzed what exactly that person had done, what they were convicted of, and up until Donald Trump, nobody had ever been pardoned who had not paid back in restitution their victims of a crime or paid back fines to the government. In other words, you had to make yourself completely whole, then you had to demonstrate that you were rehabilitated, that you accepted the reality of your offense. Now, contrast that with what happened with Trump. He gets in on his first day in office without any reports from the pardon attorney about any of these people, any recommendations saying that they have paid off their restitution, they've paid their fines, they've made peace with their victims and so on, they've apologized to the police. No, none of that had happened. Instead, they issued a blanket pardon for everybody who had stormed the Capitol and participated in the shocking and atrocious events of January 6th. So what do you have in that mix? You have people who have been convicted before for domestic violence, for assault, for armed robbery, you name it. Drug dealing, gun dealing, all of that's in there. And what do you know? After this mass pardon happens, people start getting picked up again. There's a guy down in Richmond who was burglarizing all of the houses in his neighborhood. And now this guy, Moynihan, says he's going to eliminate the minority leader of the United States House of Representatives. So they have enough people over at the Department of Justice who know a lot about January 6th, including Ed Martin, who was there tweeting on that day, describing it as a day of celebration like Mardi Gras, and his senior advisor, Jared Wise, who was here yelling, "Kill him," about the police, that they should know how to get these people into line, because it's a very dangerous situation. And I just want to add finally to what Mr. Jeffries said. Speaker Johnson described the exercise of First Amendment rights across the country by 6 or 7 million Americans as part of the No Kings rallies as a Hate America rally. The Hate America rally happened on January 6th, 2021. We saw what a Hate America rally looks like. There were more than 140 police officers who were wounded, injured, hospitalized. Many of them have been forced out of police work because of what happened on that day. And what does Speaker Johnson say about that? Nothing. Now, he's part of the cover-up. He's part of trying to sweep the whole thing under the rug. Meantime, you had 7 million people participating peacefully, non-violently, in the American political process yesterday. And everybody should be praised for that. Those protests were a model for First Amendment exercise in the United States.